Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Let Me Finish from Decision Desk HQ. I'm Hotline Editor Kirk Beto, and joining me today are an all-star panel of election reporters and analysts. Joining me from the Wall Street Journal is Dante Chinny. He is the politics and data reporter. Hello, Dante.
Hey.
And also joining us for her first time on a Decision Desk HQ show, one of my friends and one of my favorite campaign reporters, actually, Audrey Fahlberg, the politics reporter at the National Review. Hey, Audrey.
Hello, Kirk. Glad to be here.
I am surrounded by heroes here right now. So today we are going to talk about three stories from a busy week in politics. And Audrey, I wanted to start with you here. There's a lot to digest from. We're less than a week out of President Biden dropping out. The Democrats have rallied around Kamala Harris. What do you want to talk about today?
Well, it's really extraordinary, Kirk, how quickly Democrats rallied themselves around Kamala Harris. I mean, you have to remember, there's so many would-be rivals out there, so many Democratic governors who have been touted as strong contenders, in the then hypothetical scenario, even 2 weeks ago, that Biden would step aside. But about 30 minutes after he says by way of social media statement on Sunday afternoon that he's stepping aside, she quickly rallies support from basically everybody in the party, right? And so what we're seeing now is obviously Republicans are wasting no time in attacking her, and their anti-Harris playbook is pretty simple. Right. I mean, the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to say, look, this wasn't just the Biden administration, it's the Biden-Harris administration. So they're going to lay blame on her for every single one of the administration's failures, which, voters have had long running concerns with this administration. They're going to talk nonstop about the Afghanistan withdrawal, obviously immigration and inflation. But then Republicans are also arguing that she's not just responsible for the Biden administration's shortcomings. As she demonstrated on the 2019 debate stage, she, came out with a lot of positions that were even to the left of Biden. For example, she said she'd vowed to ban fracking, came and pledged support for a single payer Medicare for all. A lot of other positions that the Republicans are going to really blame her for. And then also, beyond her California progressive roots, and, obviously sometimes she has some gaffes on the stump, and her laugh is a little off-putting to some. Obviously most Americans were genuinely shocked by what they saw on that debate stage. And they're going to say, Kamala Harris has been in this administration for 3.5 years. She knew, right? And we're already seeing that in a lot of advertisements, which I'm sure we'll get into as our show goes on. But that's kind of how they're laying out their attack on her. And I think because they're already on air, it's a pretty effective one. So obviously she's got to get some ads defending herself pretty quickly.
I want to ask you a question about the Republican playbook against Harris right now. Obviously, they have to throw out the playbook they have against Biden. It's hard to do the strength and the toughness of Trump in this situation now that they're not running against 81-year-old Joe Biden. You mentioned the discipline of the Democrats and the discipline of Kamala Harris specifically to rally the whole party around her. In the first few days this week, it looked like Republicans didn't have that same level of discipline with some of the attacks they were lobbing at Harris. I think it was GOP House leaders had to have a come to Jesus meeting with some of their members of, hey guys, let's not actually do any of these racist, these sexist attacks against her. You had Tim Burchett from Tennessee call her a DEI hire. Because to your point, there is plenty of meat on that bone for them to attack her on policy and a little bit more substance. Do you think that they're going to have the same level of discipline that the Democrats have had this past week? And Dante, feel free to jump in on this as well.
I think that's obviously the big question, right? I mean, it was, so I was in Milwaukee for the Republican convention. Obviously that happened. It kicked off 2 days after this assassination attempt on Trump, which, I talked to a lot of allies of Trump. I ran into Roger Stone at the convention, and he said, we're seeing a new type of Trump, a new calm Trump, right? We saw that at the beginning of his convention acceptance speech, where he spoke for about 20 minutes, and he gave this really harrowing blow-by-blow account of what happened. But then, it turns into a 90-minute stem winder that's meandering and reminding voters, okay, this guy cannot really exert this prolonged degree of self-discipline that he needs to beat Harris, right? I think that is the challenge. Can he, when he gets in the debate stage with her, is he going to make a policy oriented argument, or is he going to lob sexist attacks at her, talk nonstop about Willie Brown, right? If he does that, that really might not play well with swing voters.
I think it's honestly going to be a challenge because I don't know if Trump does policy super well. It's not really his strength. And I do think they've got two appeals. When Biden was a candidate on the Democratic side, they really had two appeals, Republicans did. One was, I was talking about inflation, the border, and these issue things. But the thing that was really resonating with swing voters, voters in the middle, was like, look at this guy. Do you really think he can do this job? That's really, and I think a lot of voters who are in the middle, whatever swing voters are left, like 5% of Americans, whatever number it is at this point, looked at that and were like, wow, I don't know if that guy's going to make it another 4 years. So that's gone. So now it really just has to be policy. I mean, they can try this other stuff with Harris. Maybe it'll work, like laughing Kamala, whatever they want to say. But they're going to have to really make their hay on the issues. And I'm not sure if that's Trump's strength. We're going to find out, I guess, in the weeks ahead.
And we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out as we actually get moving into this campaign 2.0 stage, basically this reset we have. Now, Dante, what have you been following this week here? What are you looking at?
Well, I spent a lot of my time looking at data and polls, and somebody has to. So, look, we're at this really scary time, scary at least from my point of view when you look at this stuff, where there are a lot of polls coming out, and basically we're in the middle of the cyclone, and we're trying to like, hey, where's it all going to end up? And it's like, the bottom line is the cyclone's rolling through the middle of the town right now. This isn't the time to figure out where things are going to be. Look, I don't mind polling right now. I really don't. As long as you're not, I see we're doing polling and people are going on television saying, this is what this means for November. And it's like, it doesn't mean anything for November right now. Nothing means anything right now. All we're doing is kind of getting
a tattoo like on my back. Nothing means anything right now.
Yeah, make good choices. We're really at the point right now where we just don't know anything. Everything is very unsettled, and that's okay. It's okay. This is part of the experience too. But trying to draw these big conclusions out of it's just ridiculous. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to name pollsters. But there was a poll this week where the way I measure these things is, and people are going to throw fruit, whatever you want at me for saying this, but I go into the crosstabs and try to see like, okay, let's see what's going on. And like, people are like, well, why do you go in the crosstabs? It's like, because all the polls show on the top is like, it's a close race. Mm-hmm. It's 3 points, it's 2 points, it's 1 point. That doesn't mean anything. You got to find out why the numbers look the way they do. So I went to the crosstabs, one of these polls this week, and it showed me that among college-educated whites, mm-hmm. Harris was winning college-educated white men by 4 points. But Trump was winning college-educated white women in this poll by 16 points. That is not true. That did not happen. If that number is correct, I'll eat my hat, I'll eat your hat, Audrey, I'll eat your hat, I'll eat everybody's hat. That's not correct. And like, what's that really about? It's about the fact that things are incredibly unsettled right now, trying to understand what's going on through these polls. There was another one I saw today that the race was closer with Gen Xers, or better. It was better for Harris among Gen Xers than it was among millennials. And I was just like, that is also not correct. I'm sorry. Like, Gen Xers are probably going to be a pretty good group for Trump. They consistently have been. To see Harris doing better with Gen X than she's doing with millennials seems highly unlikely to me. Again, who knows? Maybe it's possible. I don't think it's likely. And I just like, I don't like this because this time of the polling situation, because we all want answers. I want answers too, man. I want to know how everything's shaking out too. But sometimes you just have to accept the answer is like, we just don't know right now. And it's going to take a little while for things to settle out. Those are the most disappointing things for anybody who's interested in politics. I understand that. But like, you do have to accept reality for what it is sometimes. And right now, just everybody needs to take a break on trying to read too much into a bunch of polls that are being done at a very chaotic moment.
Dante, you're telling us to pump the brakes here right now. And my story is also kind of similarly to that, where Democrats are very excited right now. They have Harris glide path to the nomination, avoided a messy open primary fight. But she starts off in the same level as Biden right now, in my mind. Still an underdog. She now has to kind of microwave a whole campaign within about a week here. She's inheriting the Biden infrastructure. She's inheriting all the money that they had raised together, about $100 million. She tack on another $126 million or so that the campaign reported raising. But she's not on air right now. There's no Harris ads. They finally cut their first digital video this morning on Thursday and released it. There's no material. There was a story in the AP this morning that talked about how Trump and his allies in the super PAC world are outspending Harris 25-1 right now this week and next week. We're about 100 days out from the general election. We're 2 months out from early voting starting in Virginia. Harris has to hit the ground running right now. Like, look, she did the easy part. They kicked the president off the top of the ticket. They consolidated a whole party behind a successor. She's got her pick of ready, willing, and able running mates. But now she's got to go out there and win. If she's inheriting the same campaign infrastructure that has Biden down in the national polls and in most swing state polls, she's got a lot of work to do. And so I guess my feeling is right now that this Harris honeymoon that the Democrats are having should be pretty short-lived, because now you gotta get to work here. You got 3 weeks until the convention, and then it's full speed ahead. And I'm very curious to see how much Biden plays in the campaign over the next few months, and heck, even a little bit closer to that, what role he plays at the convention. Because if I'm Harris, I kind of want to have respect for the work that you have accomplished in the administration, but also start trying to draw a line in the sand there that separates you two. And I don't know how she does that here.
I was going to say, actually, to your point, Audrey, it actually, some of that, look, if it comes down to like, how is this guy here? Were you a part of it? How much did you know? That's problematic for Harris. But if Biden's just doing his thing and Harris is out doing her thing, I don't know if it hurts Harris as much, unless it's policy related. If it's Biden being gaffe prone, it actually, I don't know if that has as big of an issue on big of a impact on Harris. I don't know. We'll see. Again, we're gonna have to see. Like, we've never been here before. We're in a completely different. We've never been in this kind of situation that we're in right now. It's pretty remarkable.
Well, Dante, don't we have any polls right now that we can look at real quick and get all these inferences in?
I think it's going to be a close race, Kirk. From what I've heard, it looks like it's going to be a very close race.
Well, are you telling me it might all come down to turnout as well?
It's going to come down to turnout. Crucial Waukesha County.
Crucial
Yes.
Waukesha County.
Yes.
Well, okay, folks, we're coming up on time for the show here right now, and I wanted to give our panel here a chance to do some shameless plugs. We have a lot to talk about here throughout the rest of this election cycle, and these two folks here are doing some excellent work here. So, Audrey, let's start with you. What are you working on? What have you done that you're proud of and want to share with our audience here?
I'm working on a story. I caught up with some Republicans in the Capitol today about how we're living through this amazing moment in history. So that's yet to come out. But I wrote a story that came out today called, quote, "A Party Not a Cult," end quote. Democrats contrast Biden ouster with Republicans' years-long Trump's struggle, basically about the dynamics we were talking about earlier, where they're very effective in rallying around a replacement and just moving forward after some of the worst 3 weeks in their modern memory for them.
Oh, absolutely. That sounds like a really good story. Dante, what about you? Shameless plug. What do you got cooking?
So when I'm not at the Journal, I run this thing called the American Communities Project. It's americancommunities.org. You can go on there. We just did a year's worth of work on understanding division in America, and we just came out with we just have another story from Ray Suarez about division in America. But there's a huge post on there that goes through all the work we've done over the last year, looking at the polls we've done on division in America, going out in the field and talking to people. I think if division is something you're interested in, it's obviously something we all live with. It's a really interesting set of data to go through and stories to go through and try to understand why we are as divided as we are.
That's really cool, Dante. We're going to check that out. For me, real quick, it was a short column that I wrote yesterday, actually, called What It Takes to End a Presidential Campaign. And if you're like me and a big election nerd, and if you're on this stream, you hopefully are, I've been highlighting, bookmarking, dog-earing my copy of Richard Ben Kramer's What It Takes for over a year now, ever since Biden decided to run for re-election. And so I looked into how he started his campaign as detailed in the book, and most importantly, how he ended his campaign, and drew some parallels between ending his first campaign in 1987 and his speech last night. And that's on nationaljournal.com. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our excellent panel here for today's show. And thank you to our producers behind the scenes. Check out DecisionDeskHQ.com for more election news and analysis. Maybe once we get a little bit more preponderance of polls and Dante gives us the okay, we can start making some influences as we work through this cyclone. And as we work through this cyclone, we'll be back next week with another episode of Let Me Finish. And remember, tune into Decision Desk HQ for all your election news and needs. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Later.